So welcome everyone who's just joining us live on Facebook. As I dropped my phone at the beginning, isn't that a very good time to do that? Yeah. So welcome to Interfaith Insights. Just before we go proper live, just after 1 o'clock with the show, we always start with some positive news stories. So I'm hoping everyone's had a good week. How's everyone's week been so far?
Brilliant. Sunshine almost every day, clean air, the sounds of birds chirping everywhere. This has been the summer of my dreams, the summer of love.
Wow.
Oh,
Wow.
that's true. It's been very beautiful, very calming, very peaceful. I've just been getting on with my work, but in terms of the weather, which is, you know, the topic is environment today, the environment has been spot on.
So as Nassim was saying, today's topic is all about healing the planet, and we have some very special guests with us who are going to be talking on that theme. Just before we get to that, I thought it'd be a good thing to start with some positive news stories. And we're all aware that there's less pollution, and as we look around the world, we see lots of evidence of that, which is wonderful. I was reading this morning from a document called Science of the Total Environment. Makes me sound intellectual, or maybe someone who needs to get more of a life, but actually very, very, very interesting document that talks about the positive and the indirect effects of COVID-19, and particularly the most affected countries, China, the USA, Italy, and Spain. And it shows that there's a significant link between the contingency measures that have been put in place to stop the spread of COVID-19 to the improvement of air quality, clean beaches, environmental noise reduction. Although it does warn us that, you know, this might be temporary unless, obviously, when we emerge from lockdown, that we take some serious measures. But the virus, when it was affected 213 countries, and they've all been putting in measures like social distancing, and climate experts predict that the greenhouse gas emissions could drop to proportions that have never been seen since World War II. And a lot of this has happened obviously due to power plants, car production being halted, and that's seen that dramatic air production pollution levels being reduced in America and Europe and China and other parts of the world. As humans stay inside, the environment is changing. Wild animals are roaming the streets in many areas. Some typically smog-filled skies are becoming clear. There were reports, some wonderful images, if you can look online, of people in the Punjab in India being able to see the snow peaks of the Himalayas, a view that for decades has been blocked by air pollution. New Delhi has recorded a 60% drop in fine particulate matter, the world's deadliest air pollutant. Los Angeles, a traffic congested city with some of the highest levels of smog levels. You can now see the sky because the rush hour traffic doesn't exist. In Philippines, the capital city, the world's deadliest air pollutant has dropped by 180%. So these social distancing measures are obviously helping with the environment. Many of our beaches are beginning to be cleaned up. But as we're saying, there is a caution there that we can't just start to celebrate all these drops in pollution, because we have to be prepared for when the lockdown emerges. How do we maintain that environmental impact that we have? And I'm hoping that some of that discussion will take place with some of the wonderful guests that we have today. So I think now we are probably ready to begin live. And to those of you who are just joining us just now on Facebook, welcome to Interfaith Insights, which is the show that looks at the positive impact that faith has on people's lives and the work that it drives people to do. Hopefully you're joining us on Facebook, but remember you can also catch us on Twitter and YouTube, where you'll find more videos from the Edinburgh Interfaith Association. So we always have fantastic guests on from NGO, people working in NGOs, musicians, human rights activists. And today we have two wonderful guests with us. We have the Reverend David Coleman, who has that amazing, fascinating title of the Environmental Chaplain for the Church of Scotland. And
hold on.
Congregations.
Well, I'm a United Reformed Church minister, and I work across the board with Christian.
And you work across, I shouldn't say Church of Scotland. So it's based in Church of Scotland, 121.
No, that's office. Okay, just get it straight.
Yeah, go for it.
Joe's going to ask me, I gather. Okay, the United Reformed Church, which is a fairly small mainstream Christian grouping in the UK, made available a full-time job for the churches of Scotland, anybody who wanted to be involved, to encourage an awareness of climate issues and care for creation. But you know, I know in Scotland everybody thinks Christianity Church of Scotland. They've given me somewhere to live, so I'm not.
So you're across all denominations.
Yep.
So we should be very clear in that, you know, across all denominations, that wonderful title of Eco Congregation Chaplain. And also we have the environmental activist Julia Duncan, talking about some of the conservationist volunteer work that she coordinates. And finally, we also have a good friend of mine, reggae star, very knowledgeable Rastafarian guru friend of mine, Mike Delatre. As always, we begin with Nassim, who is going to be interviewing Julia, and I think has a special video for us as well.
Thanks very much, Ian. Good afternoon, back for another amazing show. I hope that we're able to entertain you as we have been doing in the previous weeks, and I hope that you find the topics very interesting. We certainly find them very inspiring, and I hope that we're able to share that inspiration with you guys today. So as Ian has said, the topic is environment. Well, it's actually healing, and so my show's in two parts today. My segment's in two parts today, in that the first part, I went along to Julia's garden, I should say. I didn't go inside, I went to her garden and we recorded a vlog, and Kara's just lining that up. And I was talking about self-healing, because that's important. Before we go and save the world, it's important that we heal ourselves inside. We're at a good place, you know, mentally, physically, spiritually, and only then we should try and, you know, manifest that healing out, externally. So I believe the video is being shown now, where, yeah, that's it. On this beautiful, bright Friday afternoon, I'm with my very, very good friend Julia Duncan. Julia, I've known for a good couple of years. She's an environmentalist and a dear, dear friend. And whenever I need advice, I can always call on her. So today we're making a vlog, but before, most important, I need to just point out that this is the first time I've ever been out and interacted with another person, but I have taken full responsibility and measured 2 meters to the end. Can you see that? So before we go and try and save the world, which is obviously, you know, is very, very important as well, we need to kind of look at ourselves as well, and we need to detach ourselves from our daily lives. Some part of the day we need to detach from the work, the family and the responsibilities, and to take care of ourselves as well. So, you know, self-care is very, very important.
It's a body scrub or a bath soak. It can be both.
Bath soak or a body scrub. So we have all the ingredients ready here. So we've got Dead Sea salt, and we're making a mint one. Sorry, what are the ingredients? So we've got mint here, which I've been chopping away here with this amazing tool, and all the leaves are flying off because it's all blooming windy. Oh my goodness. Oh my God, they're all flying away. Right, okay. So mint is the best thing to use, Julie says.
Put that in a bowl.
Put that in a bowl.
And hopefully it won't blow away so much.
I know, no, we managed to get some there. Okay.
So much.
I know, no, we managed to get some there. Okay, a bowl.
And then you're going to add one of the salts. So you can choose one or the other. You either got the Dead Sea, which is very mineral rich and mineral
Ooh,
really
this
very
spoon.
good for you.
2 of these.
No, the tablespoon.
Oh my God, that's massive. 1, 2.
So the reason we're using the salts is because they are very good for the skin. So they drive away impurities, they're full of minerals, and the skin is an organ, you know, it's the biggest organ in your body, and it absorbs things. When you put something on your skin, it goes into your bloodstream within 26 seconds.
26 seconds?
Yeah, so anything you put on your skin, sun cream included, shampoo when you wash your hair.
Yeah.
So it's quite important to think about that, because this is chemical free.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
See, you've done this before.
No, I've not done this before. I've been watching too much Blue Peter or this kind of stuff. Wow, look, and that's going to last, you say, 6 months in the fridge?
Yes.
And 3 months just left on the shelf?
Yeah.
Yeah, please. I'm going to have a wee cup of tea with Julia, but in the meantime, thank you very much for being, you know, joining us, and I hope you enjoyed this video, and hope you've learnt lots. I've certainly learnt lots, and it's our kind of united responsibility of everybody to take care of ourselves first, and then, you know, sort of reach out to the community and the gardens and the nature. We all have an ultimate responsibility. So thank you very much, Julia.
No worries, that's great fun. And the sun came out.
And the sun came out, I know.
Yeah, beautiful.
I hope you enjoyed that video. So I was making a bath scrub. I know we kind of rushed through that video, but I think in the video we also added almond oil and made that bath scrub, and it's just lovely. Julia, I've been using it. It's really, really invigorating. I think that's the word. So thank you very much. So welcome to Julia Duncan, who's a dear friend of mine. I think I met her when I was volunteering at Blackhall Mosque, and through Julia, we actually did a lot of work around engaging with the BME communities. So we took lots of mosque trips. We did the Duke of Edinburgh Ward, we did the John Muir Ward, and engaged with the Muslim community, because a lot of kids have never experienced the outside. So I think we went to Wiston Castle and all these weird and wonderful places, and we went to Ben Lomond. We did a workshop there one weekend. So Julie's just a great friend, and she's always someone there to advise me on what best to do. So Julie, do you want to say hi? And so Julia is an she's a business development manager, which sounds so boring, but she does so much more than that. And she's with the Conservation Volunteers. Hi, Julia.
Oh, hi, Naseem. Thank you for that introduction. Yeah, that business development manager does sound horrific, doesn't it? It's basically, but an activist does sound fantastic, and environmentalist also sounds wonderful. I kind of hope that I am all of those things. But I do a lot of fundraising, yes, for the Conservation Volunteers. And we really, we're the bridge between nature and kind of like life, in the sense of getting people out volunteering. But we're very, very keen to get people that perhaps wouldn't normally have anything to do with nature and wildlife connected to their local green space. That's what we do.
I remember one of the projects that we did, we talked about Adam the other day and how we're trying to get rid of all the rhododendrons. I probably said that wrong. But I remember one year there was a project where you had to go along and count how many bats were in a certain space and time. Do you remember that at all?
Yeah, I think we went to Newhales, was it? Mm-hmm. Yes, yes, I remember that.
What was the purpose of counting the bats?
So I think that, we've done quite a few bat counting projects, and possibly one of the most amazing ones was with RNIB and people without sight, and that might be the one that you're remembering. And it was really about, bats are a protected species, very protected in the UK. And it's just really about raising awareness and allowing people to understand that they can be very much part of the monitoring process. Anyone can monitor any species at any time, but of course we all feel very disconnected a lot of the time. So, what has that got to do with me? Why should I count bees or butterflies or bats or birds or what have you? But I think what we try and do is make that connection so that people find it fun, that they find that they have a role to play, and that they feel empowered. And these days, I have to say, it's an awful lot easier because we've all got, one of these little devices. And on those, there are so many different ways of helping wildlife, from your living room, from your garden, from the local park, without really having to make a lot of effort. So that, and the bat thing was all part of just connecting people, with bats, and having a little, bat monitor, just to see, because it's an amazing thing to hear the bats coming down to you.
Yeah. Now, we're talking about healing the world and environmental kind of responsibility that each and everybody has. You mentioned bees. I think that's a very prominent thing that we should be talking about, because we have bees, they have a role to play, but if bees are dead, what does that actually mean for us? Do you want to talk about that, please?
Yeah, and I'm totally not a scientist. I don't have all the facts and figures, but what I think a lot of us do know already is that our bees are in, some of them are on the kind of critical list at the moment, and that's to do with very intensive farming and the use of pesticides and herbicides and things like that the bees they just can't quite manage. And there's, I think it's important for us to understand that if we don't have bees, we don't have food, because, even our animals, if we're all carnivores, they eat plants, a lot of them, and they graze. So just understanding or starting to see the connection between ourselves and bees and the role that they play in terms of pollinating, not just bees, bees are the obvious pollinator, but there are many, many other types of pollinators out there. Can't list them all, but wasps, which we don't like, but they are also a pollinator as well. But the important thing is understanding that we can help the bees by producing or growing nectar-rich plants in our own gardens that give them, they pollinate our plants, they give us food, but it also gives them an awful lot of help. We can also eat organic, you know, try and focus on organic farming and food, because of course there's no pesticides used in organic farming.
Mm-hmm. Exactly, and that's a responsibility everybody really has to take. And I remember you mentioned that the bees like purple flowers, so try and plant purple flowers, because there's a strange attraction there. So that's something I wasn't even aware of. So thanks very much.
It's good. I mean, I think we did the scrub. I mean, I was trying to think of very simple things for folk that maybe don't even have a garden, you know, and many of us are lucky to have gardens, but there's a huge number of people that don't have a garden, but they might have a windowsill, and almost every herb and even things like lavender have purple flowers. Chives have purple flowers. They are very attractive to bees. So if you plant the plants that you quite like to eat, you'll be also doing a favor for the bees.
Yeah, and you can use them in your salad and whatnot, and they'll grow in the window. So that's something that everybody can do that perhaps don't have a garden, or really the energy to go to the garden and do that. So another part of healing the planet is more walking, more cycling, less driving. And Ian referred to this earlier on, the fact that what a difference it's having on the planet. But that's for not everybody flies every day of the year, but what we do every day of the year is walk or drive. So what changes can we make in terms of that to have that positive impact on our local environment?
Well, I think, I think COVID-19 has really got us all. I mean, I think everybody has been given the initial 45 minutes to get out the house. And I think most people, if they can, have taken advantage of that. And I've noticed, local to where I live, an awful lot more people out every day. I'm sure we're all noticing that a lot more people are cycling and walking. And I think, the next step for me, because it is so much enhances your walk, is to start to think about what you can hear and what you can see and what you can smell, as you're taking your walk. And if you have got a phone, and a lot of our kids love to be on phones, what you can be identifying. There's some great apps. There's one that I use a lot in my work called Chirp, but there's loads of versions of that. So if you go, what is that bird? I don't know what that bird is. You might not be interested, some people are not, but sometimes when you get you get your ear in, you might not be able to see it, you might not have any binoculars, but you can hear there's a certain call. And these little apps will tell you what the bird is and what it's doing. That's a really fun thing to do. You might be looking at insects, you might be identifying trees, so it's taking your walk from, moving through a piece of hopefully green space to something that's a little bit more dimensional. And that, I know that most people that get that sort of environmental bug become quite hooked quite quickly. And they get more enjoyment, so they're not just getting physical exercise, but they're showing an interest in their local environment. And my daughter and I, just to finish that, my daughter, she's 13, she's obsessed now with litter picks, because unfortunately a lot of people are using the beaches and the rivers or wherever, the parks, and some people are dropping litter. It just happens, but whoever's litters it doesn't matter. It's our responsibility to pick it up. Obviously prefer if it didn't drop it. She loves a litter pick. So we've now got this thing like, Mum, can we go and pick up litter? so that's what we're doing on our walk.
Wow, that's fantastic. And obviously walking itself has the obvious physical impact. And then people, when you're out and about, you're in a different kind of zone. I always feel anyway, you're appreciative more of nature. You're looking at all the beauty. That's obviously in green spaces. If you're living in a very urbanized area, it can be difficult to kind of appreciate nature, but you're still out and about and you see folk and you nod and you say hello. And it's good for folk that are maybe at home by themselves to get to go out. One more thing that I want you said something quite important on Friday. You said something along the lines of that we have an opportunity 3 times a day to make a positive impact. Do you want to talk a bit about that, please?
Yeah, that was really talking about, trying to find something that we all have in common. We all need to eat. We tend to eat, not everybody, 3 times a day. And in my head, you get that opportunity, particularly if you are kind of the main shopper, perhaps in your household, or the main cooker, or, each time you put a meal on the table or you go shopping, you can be thinking what's going onto your plate and what's happened to that food. How processed is it or unprocessed? How wildlife friendly? How far has the food come to get onto your plate? And these are all very, very amazingly important decisions in terms of, we're going to have strawberries in December because they will have come from, I don't know, Cuba or somewhere. You know, how far has your food traveled? This is really important for climate change. Are you buying locally? Are you buying from the local farm? Are you buying, you know, local fruit and vegetables? Is it organic? Now, you can't make people can't afford organic food, but the more people that buy one thing a week that's organic, the more organic will become the norm. So rather than looking for, you know, when you're in the supermarket, you see things that are labeled organic. Well, you know, they should really be labeled chemical full, that kind of thing. So it was really just sort of that feeling of, you know, I can do something 3 times a day that might make a difference. And that one tiny thing, if we all did it, would make a huge difference.
Wow, that's really good. And just talking a bit about your work, I know you work with a lot of the marginalized communities, and you mentioned that you took along some tomatoes to one of your, you know, one of the people that you work with. What was that all to do with working with?
Yeah, so that's in lockdown. So TCV, our organization, is all about people, really. So, you know, it's all about using the environment and environmental activity to make people feel better, because we know that if people feel better, the planet will be better. So we've kind of got it the other way round. Now in lockdown, it's obviously very difficult for us to work with volunteers or with groups of people because everybody's shut away. So we're trying to find other ways to help people, particularly those that can't get out at all. So we had these tomato growing kits, lots of them. So we took them around to some of our service users. And one guy did comment that once he had his tomato plant to look after, to nurture, to bring on, what a difference it made to his existence, because obviously mental health is shot to pieces when you're isolated and you can't speak to people and you can't get out in the fresh air. And that was, you know, very moving, you know, for us to get that feedback that these little kits that we're dropping off to get people to grow things are making a huge difference to people's lives.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Julia. Listen to you. You're so inspiring, and so many tips there, wonderful tips. One thing that we didn't talk on was recycling. And this is something that I, you know, for me, if when I'm putting the bins out on a Wednesday night, I actually rummage through the bins just to make sure the kids haven't dropped, you know, some recyclable item in the bin. And so I'm going through that because I just can't handle the fact that a tin of a can or a plastic thing has gone into a bag that it shouldn't have gone into. So, you know, we can all make little changes that, you know, they're small changes, but they'll have a ripple effect, inshallah, and ultimately it's people taking responsibility within their home and their community, and inshallah that will have a positive impact on the environment. And right now with the whole lockdown and the pandemic, you know, that's something that we didn't create, that's come from a bigger source, but look at the positive impact, and we really need to take lessons from that. And I hope that, you know, and I know that David's going to be talking a lot more on that. So thank you so much, Julia. Absolute pleasure talking to you. Thank you very much.
I wonder to see if I could just ask Julia, just before we move on, and I'm sure David will touch on this, is she mentioned that she's working with Blackhall Mosque. I'm just wondering if there are a few faith communities involved, and whether they feel, you know, is there a kind of motivation from their faith community to help, you know, do something with the environment?
So one of the biggest communities that we're working with at the moment is Syrian Refugees. So I'm using the word community in a kind of looser sense really there, because they are, the people we're working with are in lots of different parts of Scotland actually, so not just in Edinburgh, but in different places. And that itself has been such a fantastically positive experience for us as individuals and as an organisation. And, you know, we have been going out as we do in all weathers. It's not just on a sunny day that we go out. And the impact has been incredible. But it is very interesting because, you know, look at our weather, you know, it's something, sometimes it can be a difficult thing to sell, can't it, when it's pouring with rain? Do you want to go out and plant trees, or do you want to go somewhere, you know? But you know, I think we have about 1,500 people involved with us, and when we advertise an opportunity, we have waiting lists, and so, you know, people are really keen to come out and to learn and to make a difference.
That's great. Wonderful. Thank you so much for that. Now, very excited to have the Reverend David Coleman in conversation with Joe and finding out some more of the great work that's going on in eco congregations and elsewhere. And hopefully we'll have some practical ideas of other things that we can do. And a very beautiful backdrop as well. Wonderful. Joe, over to you.
Thank you very much, Ian. You know, I was fascinated with that interview with Julia by my friend Nassim, talking about our united responsibility to the earth across all denominations, across all people. The other day, I was walking in downtown Edinburgh and I looked up into the sky and there was the Balmoral Hotel clock, one of our most famous icons. And for the first time in 2.5 months, Ian and Nassim, it was moving forward. Yes, the clock has been repaired. Well, I think this is a sign from above or somewhere that we too are moving forward. And as Nassim said, we need a united effort to do this with the environment. Who better to help lead us in moving forward than our United Reformed Church minister, Reverend David Coleman, who's working across all generations as an environmental chaplain here in Scotland. So David, welcome to Interfaith Insights, and tell us how you came to hold this post and what your responsibilities are.
Right, thank you very much, Joe. The post emerged some years ago when groups of Christians who were ahead of the pack in their, I'll just deal with this phone. Basically, you know, people noticed amongst all communities that humanity has not been treating their planet very well. So, you know, years ago, people said, this goes together with our faith, with our concern for people, for the planet. It makes sense. It's a nice thing. Let's get this organization together. And after a few years, I'll deal with this, sorry. Sorry, I can't answer at the moment. I have to do this because I'm powering this interview with the phone. Okay, where were we? Yes. So it looked like a nice thing. And then as time went on, we've become much more aware of the extreme nature of the damage we're doing. People discovered the principle of global warming, greenhouse effect in 1896. And people said, oh, no, whatever we do can't affect the whole planet. You know, we can just carry on pouring rubbish into everywhere and carry on. And then there were other things happened. There were world wars, which somewhat distracted people's attention. Then when I was growing up, if you look at the global temperature for 1963, when I was born, it actually is really quite low. And that's because of all the sulfur pollution that was blocking out the sun at the time. Underlyingly, in the meantime, things were getting worse. The overall effect on the planet was carrying on. So the churches said, how do we actually make this serious? How do you say that this is to do with who we are as people of faith, rather than setting up another committee or, you know, another study group, or we'll maybe have a report on it, which will come back to us in 5 years' time. So they said, and how do we involve people in local communities on the ground, grassroots? The United Reformed Church, as I say, quite a small grouping, said, well, we occasionally have something called special category ministries, which means that somebody who's theologically trained can devote themselves full-time to an issue. And that's how I'm the second one. It's quite exceptional that these things get renewed. But again, what looked like a nice thing, I think, has become necessary. And I hope it may continue.
I think it's actually become essential. So tell me, on a day-to-day basis, what does an environmental chaplain do in Scotland?
All sorts of things. I'd say the greatest expenditure of energy is in supporting and encouraging local churches. People have asked me before, you know, why not be interfaith? Well, as you can see today, we're very, very happy to talk to and work with people of other faiths. But I think in order not to be having the lowest common denominator but the highest common factor, you maybe have to attend to your own faith tradition and see what can be sorted out, not reinvented. We're not saying, oh, this is a new, we're saying actually, what is there, what's there in the treasury? What have we put on one side? That, and I think in my own work, I'm beginning to see that faith traditions, certainly within Christianity, they actually emerged in times of crisis and trial and turmoil. And sometimes they actually come into their own in those times. Now, if I'd said that a few years ago, people would say that's miserable cowardice. You know, clearly religion is just for people who are afraid of everything. But actually, you know, things are scary, things are bad. And what are the resources, the spiritual resources we have? Well, actually, that's what our faith is.
Wonderful. So going back to Nassim's comment about our united responsibility, it's my understanding that you're happy to work across all denominations. I could invite you to my synagogue. Nassim could invite you to her mosque. Is that correct?
That certainly is correct. There's a principle in Christianity which says, you know, whoever's not against us is for us.
Good. I love that.
Yeah.
You mentioned 1896 as a seminal turning point in terms of the environment. That was also the time that Chief Seattle, the great Duwamish Indian chief in North America, was born, and he lived mostly in the 19th century. He famously said at the end of his life, "The earth does not belong to any of us. We all belong to the earth." So I was wondering, how do you suggest that individuals and communities may, through their faith, create a more sustainable environment? Give me your top 4 or 5 ways as a faith community we can help sustain the environment.
First of all, take your faith seriously. Sometimes, you know, we've been at meetings and people say, oh, people of faith, what are they here for? You know, we deal with the big picture. We deal with with the deepest concerns of people's hearts. If we're not there, if we're not taking these things on board, what are we there for? So in that sense, I noticed Nassim said a number of times, inshallah, we pray. We put things in God's hands. We see how we can be encouraged through our own faith traditions. The question you sent to me was to create a more sustainable environment. I'm going to be very rabbinical here and say,
all right,
well, maybe let's pick that question apart, because you're talking about the rest of creation as if it's a thing, rather than in the way, again, in my tradition and in others, God addresses creation as a whole. Humanity is part of that, with a very special place. You know, what I also have to keep an eye on is that people don't say, well, human beings are the virus on the planet, we need to get rid of them. No, we've got a place, a responsibility, a purpose to help things work well. And part of that is acknowledging exactly what you quoted there, that we belong to the earth. We are responsible to the earth and to God. We cannot care for human beings without caring for the earth. You can't care for the earth without care. You know, those things must belong together. In Christianity, Pope Francis has caused a lot of Christians to finally talk to each other by pointing out we have a common home. If I quote some German Christians, climate change is like crapping on your living room carpet. You know, we haven't got anywhere else to go. And that's also why the essential core virtues of forgiveness and grace are the most environmental things you can have, because you can't just blame everyone. You need to convince and help people change.
Speaking of convincing and helping people change, I have one last question for you right now, David, and then friends, Reverend Coleman will be joining me for an extensive, longer interview that will air at 6 p.m. on Thursday evenings. I hope you'll join us on Thursday to hear more of David's very wise words. But this is indeed a teachable moment for our children in faith. It's an opportunity for them to observe the birds chirping more loudly, the planes absent from the air, the air pollution minimal, the skies bluer than ever before. What can an environmental chaplain say to our children and to their parents that we might learn from the great pandemic of 2020?
First of all, we are listening to you. I regarded it very much as part of my job to join in with the youth climate strikes in September. A little child will lead them in your scriptures, as also in mine. I think people in churches traditionally said, well, we'd love to leave a nice planet for our grandchildren. But all that has collapsed. The plenty of time to do thing has gone. If you're planning on being alive in the next 5 years, this is about you now and also about your grandchildren, your great grandchildren. We are all in it together generationally as well as devotionally in every other way.
Thank you, David. And Chief Seattle, I absolutely believe, would have wanted the United Reformed Church and Scotland to have an environmental chaplain. And I'm so pleased I'm so pleased that you hold this post and will hopefully lead us to a greener and better world in Scotland and far beyond. And so on behalf of the Interfaith Association of Edinburgh, thank you for helping us keep the faith.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, David. So inspiring. I'd be interested to know if there are other denominations, other faiths who have similar chaplains in other parts of the world, because it's such a key area of work and so vital at the moment and so inspiring. Just before we conclude, and we're going to invite Mike to play us out shortly. I mean, there've been lots of positive stories talked about today. I wonder what maybe has brought people the most hope from today. Would anyone like to share anything with us? Nassim, I see you're ready to come in.
I would like to say, I loved what Julia touched on, the fact that, you know, how we can take small steps, something that is due, because sometimes we think that, oh no, how can I, you know, impact the environment? And we overthink things, but it's not about that. It's about simply, you know, choosing once a week, like for example, 3 times a day, we have a choice of what we're going to eat, walking, recycling, all these things. And once you kind of get into the mode of thinking about the environment, you actually start on a journey. And I think that's what's very important. So start on the journey, and there's a path, and you will automatically kind of be in the right, you know, sort of heading in the right direction. That's a tip I take today.
Inshallah.
Yes, I think that's brilliant, Nassim. You know, many Jews start their morning with the Shehekianu prayer. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam Shehekianu v'hini amanu v'higianu lazman hazeh. In English, that simply means, praise be thou, O Lord our God, who gave us life, sustained us, and helped us to reach this moment. But after that, as David has suggested, it's over to us. We are the custodians, the stewards of the earth. And so from the beginning of that day and that prayer, everything we do has to be focused upon leaving this earth better for future generations.
It's wonderful. And I should also point out that on Thursday, there's a further conversation that I'm having with Bill Crook from the Buddhist community, which is focused on the environment, his work with Extinction Rebellion and Earth Holders. And there are also quite important things that we can learn from Eastern theology as well, in terms of the whole interconnectedness of everything. I think that has quite a big role to play. And even if you think you've mentioned quite a lot about the chief in Seattle, and obviously, you know, the traditional beliefs were of God and everything. And in some ways, that idea of everything in nature connected, you could argue, leads to that kind of reverence to everything. But that's another theological debate. But we're talking about the real importance for taking care of the environment today, and we're hearing that, you know, positive things began to happen, and it's how we need to build on that and to take that forward. And I'd like to welcome a very good friend of mine now, Mike Delatre, who's with us. I want to, Mike, just before I ask you to just play something for us, whether you have any thoughts anything you want to share. I know we talked recently about Rastafarian beliefs around the responsibilities to the world. Is there anything you want to add?
Yes, yes, of course. In Rastafari, we also talk a lot about communicating with the Mother Earth and to listen to the Mother Earth, because the way we see, and I'm sure a lot of brothers and sisters see the same, is we see the creation, the Father is the highest power, and the Mother, the Earth, is the provider. That's where our food come from, the water come from, everything that we need to live a life in prosperity. And so we also encourage people to listen to the water, to really listen to the birds, and to listen to the wind when they blow the leaf, and all the beautiful comfort that the mother gives. Yes, this song was actually written to support the Native American in the north of Canada. They were protesting to save water, to save a big place for water. And the song came in because I saw how also the world is actually very fragile. And so that's where the inspiration comes from. And we're also going to be joined with Anita, my beautiful wife. We're going to play
welcome, Anita.
She's going to play a little bit of drums, which is the rhythm of the heart. And I hope you enjoy it. And it was a pleasure to meet you.
Over to you, Mike. Wonderful.
I have seen how this world is fragile. Oh, can you see? Oh, can you see? Oh, have you seen how your world is fragile? Oh, can you see? Oh, can you see? The world, the world, the world, the world is crying. There is too much, but too much going on. They are destroying the only world we have. Why can't they see? Oh, I have seen how this world is fragile. Oh, can you see? Oh, can you see? Oh, have you seen how your world is fragile? Oh, can you see? Oh, can you see? Oh, this is why we have to come together and find a way, the way that love should be. We are the people are our colors of unity. Oh la 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 la, oh la 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 la, oh la 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 la, oh la la la, oh la la la, oh la 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 la la.
Yeah, fantastic. Bravo, 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 bravo.